Christmas time, beautiful, best friend. Somebody must want a nice present. He's asked me to come, like he said, several times, and I need to confess that I'm afraid of high school students. I am a teacher, and I teach university students, and I love them so much. They're wonderful. And I've taught every level of student in elementary school, and I loved being a teacher. But last year I was able to, in the spring, do some subbing here at Andrews Academy. And for the very first time in my life, I thought, I could teach high school. I like these kids. So that is why I agreed, because I found out that you all are not nearly as scary as I thought high school students are. You know how my morning started this morning? I had someone saying, "What are you going to talk about today?" Tell me, Mom, what are you going to talk about today? Huh? Are you telling the boom story? Mom, don't tell the chicken story, please, Mom. Mom, are you going to be really dramatic? And then the last thing that this person said to me was that I said, "Can you sit on the front row so I can see your expression as I tell my story?" She said, "I'm going to be sitting in the back," I'm quoting her, "denying any connection or affiliation to you." So I just want to say hi to Laura this morning. She's sitting right there. She's the oldest. She'll always be my baby girl, and maybe I can think of something embarrassing to share about Laura before the week is up. The story I'm going to tell you today is not about Laura. I want to tell you about a little girl, something that happened to her when she was 4 years old. I want you to visualize with me. She's a little girl with pigtails. She liked to braid her pigtails. She loved to wear overalls. Her favorite thing to do was to play outside. And when she was outside playing, she loved to make mud pies. So she would take a pie pan that her mom had allowed her to have, and she would fill it with mud. And she lived on a nursery, on a farm that also had all sorts of greenhouses with flowers growing. So she would take her mud pies, and she could decorate her mud pies with any kind of flower blossom she wanted to. She would put the flower blossoms on the wet mud, and then bake it and serve it to her unwilling cats and dogs. This little girl also absolutely loved animals. She had pet cows that would come when she whistled. She had a pet dog named Happy. She had so many cats. When you live on a farm, you can have lots and lots of cats, and she had lots of cats. And here's the nice thing about cats that live outside. They're grateful for attention. My cat lives on the inside, and she sees herself as the dictator of our house. And sometimes she, accepts attention, but sometimes she doesn't. But outside cats, they will let you dress them up and push them around in a baby stroller. That's what this little girl would do with her cats. And she loved that. The cats really were her only friends because she lived way out in the country. And as she would play with the cats, sometimes she would, say something to her brothers. She had 4 big brothers. 2 of them still lived at home. 2 were older and married. And she would also play with her sister, who was 13 years older, but who would play with her. And she loved her sister so much, she called her Sissy. I don't know if any of you did that when you were little. If you had a sister, you called Sissy, but that's what she called her sister. Until she was like 13 and her sister said, "Really, you probably should call me by my name." So, it sounds like this little girl had a pretty good life, right? Mud pies, flowers, sisters and brothers. She also had a wonderful mom, a mom who loved her very much. But there was a problem in her life. She had a crazy dad. Certifiably, maybe never diagnosed professionally, but certifiably crazy. This dad would throw fits. He would get mad about something. It might be something as little as he would say things like this to his wife: "You don't make the ice hard anymore. It melts in my glass so fast." And sounds crazy, right? That's crazy. And he would get mad over little things like that. And if he were in the kitchen when he got mad, he would reach into the fridge and grab the ketchup and walk through the house squirting it over every surface. Get to the bathroom, grab the shampoo, whatever, walk back, squirting it everywhere. Kicking at furniture, breaking it as he went, throwing things, hitting people, throwing bits. And the mom, this little girl's mom, was usually the one who received the brunt of this. The brunt of the bits and the beatings and that sort of thing. So this little girl, her life was not, what one would think of as being an ideal childhood. One day, the little girl's sister did something so slight that it set the dad off. And usually he didn't hit the kids that much, as he did the mom, but that day he was mad at the sister, the 17-year-old sister. And he beat her so badly that the mom, who was terrified of him, utterly terrified of him, made a break for it. She grabbed her daughter, her 17-year-old, grabbed her keys and ran to the car and left. As soon as she got away, where she could get to a car, they didn't have cell phones back then, but as soon as she got into her car and got away and she got to her sister's house, she made a phone call and asked the police to go get the rest of her children. And when the little girl, when her mom and sister left in the car, she ran to her room and hid in her closet. And she huddled there and cried in that room that she shared with her sister. And she was just terrified of what was going to happen next, but she heard sirens come. And when the police car pulled up and told the dad, "Look, you can give us the kids now, or you can get arrested, and then we'll get the kids, but give us the kids." The little girl was taken out to the police car, and she was crying, scared, and the big policeman took a teddy bear out of his trunk that he kept there for little kids who were afraid, and he gave it to her. And she was taken to where her mom was. That little girl was me. And I would like to tell you that I had a really happy ending to that story, that, things were so better after that. But after a few days, we went back. We lived there. I lived there until I went away to Southern. Saw a lot more fits. My point today is that I don't want you to feel sorry for what I went through as a kid. I've had a very, very blessed life, especially since 1988 when I went to Southern. They used to call it Southern College of Seventh-day Adventist. Before that, it was Southern Matrimonial College. It was there that I met my best friend and husband, Mr. O, and we were married at Southern. I've had a blessed life. The reason that I want to talk to you about this today is an important reason. And before I talk to you about it is, I want you to say something with me in your heads. I'm going to say it out loud, but I want you in your heads to say this with me. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. What's the next part? Go on. Do you know what that says to me? God's will is not done on earth. Okay? Have you ever thought about that? How that's in the Lord's Prayer? We're praying when we say the Lord's Prayer, which is how Jesus told us to pray. We're praying for God's will to be done on earth as it is in heaven. So what does that naturally mean? It's not done on earth, right? A lot of the times, God's will is not done. On Friday, 26 children, 20 children, 6 adults, 26 people died in Connecticut, Sandy Hook Elementary. I'm here to tell you that was not God's will. This year, 6.5 million children will die of starvation. You know where you're going on Soul Sabari? In Sub-Asia, that's where 70% of them live. 6.5 million kids are going to die from hunger. That's not God's will. Families like mine with that kind of dysfunction, teenagers who are growing up with similar issues, maybe who don't have hope, that is not God's will. It's not. God does not want that to happen. Last night, President Obama addressed the nation, and he said that God had called home the children who died at Sandy Hook Elementary. I disagree. I absolutely disagree. I don't think God wanted those babies to die any more than you did, or I did, or their parents. God's will was not for those children to die. You guys like to sing a song. I thought you were going to be singing it today, about how God is jealous for us, and how his love is like a hurricane, and it bends us like a tree, and how great are his affections for us. I know that I don't like for my little girl, Laura, I don't like for her to have a headache. You know, I feel sorry for her when her head hurts, or her stomach hurts, or something bad happens. It makes me sad. I don't want that to happen to my child. God doesn't either. It is not God's will for those bad things to happen. God's will did not include all the things that I saw and endured in my childhood. His will does not include many of the painful realities that you all have or will experience in your life. How great are his affections for us? So great. Now, how many of you have heard the Bible story of the Red Sea being parted? If you read the Old Testament, that story gets told over and over and over and over again. The Israelites constantly remind themselves of God's great power because they had the Egyptian army right behind them, about to consume and kill all of them, when God, in his great mercy, separated them from the Egyptian army with a cloud and then opened up a sea and let them walk through. God shut the lion's mouth, kept Daniel safe, right? God created the universe. God has great power. And I think therein lies a lot of the problems that people have whenever they get mad at God. They look at his great power and they say, look at his power. Why didn't he stop this? Why didn't he do something about it? He could have made that shooter get in an accident on Friday on his way to do those evil things. Why didn't he do it? Or why did little kids starve to death? Why do all these bad things happen? But what I want to talk to you about in the next couple of days is that just because God does not prevent something, it does not mean that he caused it. It does not mean that it's his will for it to happen. And most of all, it does not mean that he doesn't care. And it doesn't mean that he won't see you through when it happens. I want to read one of my favorite quotes from, it's a short one, can I read it? He says yes. This is from Steps to Christ, page 100. Remember that. Burn that in your brains right now. Steps to Christ, page 100. If you need encouragement at any point in your life, what page are you going to turn to in Steps to Christ? Page 100. Okay. Keep your wants, your joys, your sorrows, your cares, and your fears before God. You cannot burden him. You cannot weary him. He who numbers the hairs of your head is not indifferent to the wants of his children. The Lord is very pitiful and of tender mercy. His heart of love is touched by our sorrows, and even by our utterances of them. Take to him everything that perplexes the mind. Nothing is too great for him to bear. For he holds up worlds. He rules over all the affairs of the universe. Nothing that in any way concerns our peace is too small for him to notice. There is no chapter in our experience too dark for him to read. There's no perplexity too difficult for him to unravel. No calamity can befall the least of his children. No anxiety harass the soul. No joy cheer. No sincere prayer escape the lips of which our Heavenly Father is unobservant, or in which he takes no immediate interest. He heals the broken in heart and binds up their wounds. The relations between God and each soul are as distinct and full as though there were not another soul upon earth to share his watch care, and not another soul for whom he gave his beloved Son. God is jealous for you, and God loves you so much. Hold on to that when you go through trials, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow.